And this is Ken Kraetzer for Sons of the American Legion Radio. It's Army football season and college football season starting. We're so glad to have games that'll be played this weekend. And this is our first Sons of the American Legion Academy football huddle. And we've got a couple of our contributors to Sons of the American Legion Radio on the line, on the screen. And we start with Fleet Master Chief Ray Kemp. How many years service in the U.S. Navy were you, Ray?
I did 33 years, Ken. 33 years.
And at one point in the Navy, he was a senior enlisted sailor while he was a Fleet Master Chief. And we thank you for your service in the Navy. You don't get a lot of credit on this show for being in the Navy, but we appreciate you joining us and what you've done for our country. We have from Florida, we've got Richard Miller, an alumnus of Sons of the American Legion Radio. How are you, Richard?
I'm doing very well, Ken. It's nice to talk to you. Hope you had a nice summer.
Yeah. Well, making do. What was the school in Florida that you were participating in some of their games since you moved to Florida?
The school that was Florida Atlantic University. I was hoping their play-by-play announcer is Ken Levicka. He's a co-host of Josh Cohen and the home team. I did a couple of researches for his art. I researched a couple of articles for him and got him a couple of stories for their show. Okay, very good. Glad to have you join us and help us put this together. And we have John Chuhran from Connecticut, who has been a contributor covering Army football for over 10 years, and just wrote an article about the first weekend of college football for the service academies, which will include Army playing Middle Tennessee State on Saturday, and then Navy hosting Brigham Young University. John Chuhran, how are you?
I'm good, Ken. And Navy's game, of course, is on Monday, and they're going to be on ESPN, so that's going to be a big game for them. But this is a radical year for college football because you've got so many different conferences that are doing so many different things. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 have said they're not going to play in 2020. You've got the ACC, which has announced that they're going to play an 11-game schedule with 10 games against conference opponents and one non-conference game. However, that non-conference game has to be against a team in the same state as the ACC team. Then you've got the Big 12, which is going to have a 10-game schedule with 9 conference games and one non-conference game permitted. And the SEC will conduct a 10-game schedule exclusively against in-conference opponents. So you've got quite a wide variety among the top teams in football.
Yeah, it's really something so different, so unexpected. This big, really split in college football that happened in about the 10th of August when the Big Ten and the Pac-12 decided not to play their schedule, but the Big 12, led many believe by the actions of Notre Dame and the Atlantic Coast Conference committing to play, led the Pac-12 and then the Southeast Conference to follow the ACC to play their schedules. And then in terms of the and that's called the Power Five, and then the Group of Five schools, which are conferences such as the American Conference, which Navy plays in, the Sun Belt Conference and Conference USA decided to play their schedules, where the Mountain West Conference, which Navy plays in, which Air Force plays in, decided to cancel or postpone to the spring, as did the Mid-America Conference, which Army had 3 games scheduled against their teams.
And Ken, I want to point out that you mentioned the American Conference. They made a special exception to their protocols allowing for who you could play and who you couldn't, because they specifically spelled out the phrase that they would have 8 games in conference plus non-conference games at the discretion of the individual schools. That last portion, non-conference games at the individual discretion of the schools was put in there specifically to help Navy, because everyone knows Navy as well as Army and Air Force, but they live to play the other service academies. So it's so essential for Navy to have that discretion to play those two games that the American Conference had to have that clause in there.
Yeah, very complicated arrangements. Also, the Mountain West is allowing Air Force to play 2 fall games against, as you said, they'll play Navy at home in October, and then they'll travel to West Point and play Army in the first weekend in November, and then close down their season, and then hope to restart in the spring if the Mountain West plays a spring season, which is anybody's guess really at this point.
Well, the Mountain West really did have to allow Air Force to play those games. Otherwise, I'm quite certain Air Force would have dropped out of the Mountain West, because the two games that matter most are Navy and Army.
Yeah, no, it's complicated, but the service academies receive a lot of discretion by their partners in the conferences because they're all, because of the nature of the institutions, what they're doing, and also they are really generally very popular schools for fans to go see and play. Jack McGuirk, how are you?
Doing pretty well. How are you?
Good. We appreciate you joining in. You're on our Monday program every week, doing the Jack McGuirk report at 2:30 to kick us off, and we appreciate that. You've been following Army's opponent this Saturday, Middle Tennessee State, and that's going to be a tough test for Army. I know they got a home game, but that's going to be quite a test. What's impressed you about Middle Tennessee State, Jack?
Well, on notes on the Blue Raiders, Middle Tennessee, back in 2019, they finished the season 4-8 overall. Now, some of those losses actually came against Western Kentucky, Duke, Rice. Also, they opened the season up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. That was a tough one for them. The Blue Raiders averaged 172 yards rushing per game, opponents 195, 236 yards passing, 236 passing yards for opponents, and they averaged about 26 points per game, opponents 30. Some players to keep an eye on: junior quarterback Asher O'Hara. He threw 2,616 yards and 20 touchdowns with a 63% completion rate and 8 interceptions. He also had 4 games of over 300 yards passing. Now, he also led the team in rushing with 1,058 yards and 8 touchdowns, and also had 4 games of over 100 yards rushing. Also, there's senior wide receiver Jaron Pierce. He had 568 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. Senior Jimmy Marshall actually led the team with 6 touchdowns, 35 receptions, 513 yards receiving. On defense, now here's a big key: 7 of the top 12 tacklers from last year are gone. So that could be they might have a depleted defense there. They actually had the worst ranked passing defense in their conference. But they do have senior defensive and DQ Thomas, who made 74 stops, 2 sacks, and 12 tackles for loss. As I said, and I also have a senior free safety, an all-star safety, Reed Blankenship, had 107 tackles, 4 interceptions. So looks like Middle Tennessee has that kind of, as you were saying on Monday, kind of a mirror of Army with that option offense. But with that depleted defense, we'll have to see what the Army offense does with that, especially in the secondary, with, as I mentioned, ranked the worst passing defense in the USA Conference.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Jeff Monken, the Army coach, was really talking up the quarterback of Middle Tennessee State, Asher O'Hara, as a player who can throw the ball, had 20 touchdown passes last year and can run for 1,000 yards, and that they have a big offensive line. As far as Army is concerned, they're going to go in with a new quarterback. The word from West Point in the depth chart that they released was Christian Anderson, the junior quarterback from from the Bronx, New York, would be from Cardinal Hayes High School, would be the quarterback. And they also are going to play a new center, a sophomore, Connor Bishop, who is from the Philadelphia area. And that's going to be a big change for Army, going with a new quarterback. He did play, Christian Anderson did play the Navy game last year, did well, gave his team a chance to win. But in the past, Army has had trouble with just a snap between the center and the quarterback. Really, before, it was one of the things they really had to perfect in order to really change the direction of the program. John Chuhran, what do you think about that? Army going with a new quarterback and a new center on Saturday?
Well, that's always a big challenge, Ken, as you well know. We saw that with Navy a few years back, and when they struggled to find the quarterback, they were not successful. So trying to get that quarterback in and someone who can really master the triple option, that's not an easy thing to do. So it's going to take some time, I think, for that to gel. It's also going to take some time, I think, to get comfortable with saying the last name of the center, because every time you say the word Connor and I think of Army football, all I think of is Connor Slomka.
Well, that's true. And Connor Slomka just graduated, very good player for Army. And Army should have a pretty solid offensive line with Peyton Reeder and at one of the guard spots. And that should be one of the strengths of the team, would be the offensive line. In terms of running backs for Army, obviously a team that has lived by the option offense. They returned Sandy McCoy, the big fullback, who had 576 yards last year and 10 touchdowns. And he's going to be a mainstay for them. Jabari Laws, who was who started several games after Kelvin Hopkins was hurt, the starting quarterback. He basically got hurt in the Michigan game. It was never as effective during the year. So Jabari Laws got hurt in the Air Force game. Right down the stretch, when Army was going for a go-ahead touchdown, he got blindsided from the left. And when Army really had Navy on their heels at that point in the game, but they are not assured that he is 100% healthy from the knee surgery that he had last year. But he is an explosive player that might be a good spark plug coming off the bench. But they have Artis Hobbs at one of the slot backs. We talked to Artis, 152 yards last year, a couple of touchdowns, 5.6 yards a game. And they've got another big fullback by the name of Jacoby Buchanan. And Jacoby was in the program at 258. And I think that was actually pretty accurate. He is a big player. And so it gives Army a big 1-2 punch at the fullback spot. Plus, they're looking at a player, Anthony Atkins, who's a sophomore, who was highly recruited for college football, and he chose Army. He got hurt last year as a freshman, but they expect him to be a real top runner for Army. So Army's got a little bit of depth at their fullback position. They're also trying a couple of their quarterbacks at slot back. So there's going to be some depth. We talked to one of the senior slot backs on the team, Dominic DeStefano. And I think the offense for Army is probably going to be pretty good.
I think, though you're making a big conclusion about how effective that quarterback's going to be. New quarterbacks, as you well know, don't often get comfortable with holding that ball for that last fraction of a second before they actually decide either to hold on or to pitch it. And that's going to be the crucial aspect of the game.
Well, we've been really blessed to watch two phenomenal option quarterbacks for Army in Ahmad Bradshaw and Kelvin Hopkins play the majority of the last 4 years. Of course, Kelvin Hopkins had a phenomenal season in 2018, leading Army to an 11-2 record, nearly beating Oklahoma in Norman. Mm-hmm. And I'll have to catch up with Ray on that one. Army did go out to Oklahoma in 2018 and and took the Sooners into overtime. And if an errant third down play in the Oklahoma end of the field hadn't gone awry, Army had a chance for what would have been a winning field goal attempt. But I think that is the key, and that's what everybody's going to be watching. I talked a little bit to Ben Holden of CBS Sports today about watching the interaction between the Army center, Connor Bishop, and their quarterback, Christian Anderson, starting. And then, the three options for the offense. One is for the quarterback to run the ball himself. The second option is to hand the ball to the fullback to do a dive play. And, just a power football, smash mouth football. And then the third option is the pitch play to one of the slot backs. We mentioned a couple of the Army slot backs, such as
Jabari Laws.
Well, Jabari Laws is the quarterback, but how does right here? But that's the key to it. Being able to Artis Hobbs is what I was thinking of. And that's a play. We watch it, and when Army's running it well, they can get 8-9 yards a pop on that play. If it depends on the defense, stacking the middle to stop the dive play, and then keying on the quarterback, and then pitching it out to the far side. But it's a risky play because it's a live football in most cases. And there's also a couple of good receivers for Army, led by a senior receiver, and they're thinking that Army's going to be able to have a chance to throw the ball a bit this year. As much as we all say, they're going to throw the ball more, there is talk, and that may be one of the reasons Christian Anderson was selected to be the starting quarterback, because he's demonstrated a good throwing arm against, especially in the Navy game last year.
And that's going to be an essential element for Army, simply because their schedule is almost completely turned upside down from what it originally was. The only three teams that stay on that schedule from the original schedule are Navy, Air Force, and Tulane. Unfortunately, the Oklahoma game got sacrificed and lost this year. And they're going to play 12 games. That's a record number for Army in the regular season. And they're going to play 8 home games, which is also a record number for Army. I'm curious, do you think that the extra games are going to really take a toll and really make them soar and lose out in terms of capabilities against Navy at the end of the season?
Well, it's going to be, hopefully we get to the Navy game, and hopefully everybody's hoping that we'll have spectators. It's going to be quite a season. Army's got an 8-game stretch. Ray Kemp, I know you gotta leave. What's your thought about college football this year? There's so much going on the national level, but also the service academies. What's your thought about college football this year?
Well, I think some of the things that you have already pointed out, the change in the schedule, some teams playing out of conference games, some not, with some of the flexibility that's been put into the schedule. Then add on top of that presidential election year, some social unrest, economic struggles that we're going through, a lot of distractions. And for young players, you were talking about just now about adding on some extra games into the season for Army. I think it's going to take a toll on the players. It's interesting to me, just as someone who's had my fair share of birthdays, the way I deal with stress and distraction. I wonder, this year is going to be very interesting, very telling about some of these young men who are student athletes and how well they're able to focus. So I'm curious about grades. I'm curious about the focused intensity on the field. And then a high level of performance as we have, drawn to expect at the NCAA football level.
Absolutely, and we're looking forward to you keeping an eye on the U.S. Naval Academy football team. They're going to be down in your neck of the woods playing SMU in a couple of weeks, so we're hoping that you'll be able to cover that for us. Ray Kemp, 33-year veteran of the United States Navy Fleet Master Chief, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll see you again very soon.
All righty. Take care, everyone.
Okay.
Good night.
And John, we were talking a little bit about the schedule. We appreciate Fleet Master Chief Ray Kemp joining us. He's been a frequent caller on our shows for 10 years, and we're glad to have him join us. I would say one of the challenges for Army is going to play 8 weeks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And getting off to a good start. I mean, just having the fact that you're playing home games. I always thought Army is a 10-point better team playing at home. So that's going to really help them. This first game could be quite a test against Middle Tennessee State. Both coaches, I think, are going in not being quite sure of what they have because Army did not have spring practice. I don't believe Middle Tennessee State did either. So both teams are playing a lot of new players. Army's got a few freshmen that are going to be contributors and young players. And then they go to the second week, Louisiana Monroe. Louisiana Monroe has had some real challenges. They had a COVID epidemic on the team, or outbreak. And then the hurricane last week went right through where they're located in north central Louisiana. So I'm sure they missed a few days of practice at the very least. We'll see. But then Army's got 2 really tough back-to-backs. They have a home game against Brigham Young University, which, John, you mentioned is going to start off the year by playing at Navy.
Right.
Brigham Young is a top 30 program, very close to the top 25. It's going to be a big test. And the following week, Army's going to go out and play what's arguably the strongest team they'll see all year in the University of Cincinnati, one of the top teams from the America Conference.
In the preseason polls, Cincinnati's ranked 20.
Yeah, they're 20, and they are a very solid team, and on their home turf are going to be tough. Obviously, Army has not had a lot of time to scout these schools because in a normal year, they know what the schedule is going to be a year in advance, and they have people studying each game, collecting film on each opponent, and they spend a lot of time preparing for each school, especially if they play an unusual offense.
Well, that's why I brought up the point about Army only having 3 teams carried over from their original schedule to this one, because it's very, very hard to make up in a short period of time knowledge of the teams that you're going to play that have just been added.
Yeah, no, it's, I talked to Coach Munkin a little bit about that. I said, is that a positive? And he said, no, it's just kind of scary because they're used to really studying an opponent before they have to play him at this level.
Mm-hmm.
But, but it just means that you have to worry about your team and executing what it is you do as a team, executing your offense and see if the other team can stop it, playing your defense and just trying to put a lot of, it's like they say in college football, when in doubt, put pressure on the quarterback, just rush.
If you can.
If you can. The Middle Tennessee State team is known for having a big offensive line, and that means that they can protect the quarterback. So we'll see, but I think you'll see that. But it's also, trying to stay in position. The coaches are all preaching. You don't want to rush the quarterback and then leave a spot open wide on the field that the opposition exploits very quickly. And so we'll see. I think it's going to be fun, though, because we're going to see some teams we haven't seen before. And then these 2 games will be really hosting Brigham Young is going to be a very special day. And then also going out to Cincinnati. And then a number of home games. They can play the Citadel this year for the first time. It was too bad they lost to Connecticut in the Massachusetts games. I thought those were kind of very good new rivalries for Army. Hopefully that'll pick up in the future years. And then the big visit by Air Force in first weekend in November when the colors of the Hudson Valley are at their full bloom.
Mm-hmm.
I just think with Air Force, it's going to be tough because it'll be their first game of the year. And as much as you scrimmage and practice, it's tough to be, you don't have your A game on week 1.
Well, yeah, but this won't be week 1. They'll play 3 weeks earlier against Navy.
Well, that's true. I mean, they'll play 2 games, so they'll be a little bit better ready for Army, which is a very rapid rivalry between the 2 teams. We notice there's a different relationship between Navy and Army. They're cats and dogs rivalry, but everybody knows each other and gets along. But Air Force, it's a little different, and it's hard to describe it. But the teams, it's like they don't really like each other. It's kind of a difference with Air Force. So, Richard, how are you doing down there?
I'm doing very well, Ken. I'm staying safe, chilling.
Okay, what have been some of the things that you're following in college football? You've been watching some of the stories come out. What have you seen happening in college football?
Head coach Dan Mullen is seeking answers for the roster limits from the SEC. All college football will be quiet this year. There will be no fans in attendance, and some institutions, while others will have no fans, there will also be more restrictions. Game day operations will function, but pregame, half, and other events will be slashed, at least according to the latest SEC announcement on game day guidelines. Not only no entertainment on half, in a normal year, the visiting team would have 70 players, and the home team has 80. Dan Mullen explained during a viral press conference, this was on Saturday, that this is the year it should be expected that both teams should at least be equal with that opportunity, because it might bring 70 guys for a game. You know what I mean? 70 players, 80. Is it equal? It's not equal. It's like 10 more or 10 less.
Well, Richard, that's a good point you bring up. The 2 things. One is for the most part, college football at the start of the season is going to be playing without spectators. And that's going to be different. At West Point, the Corps of Cadets is going to be allowed to attend the game, which is 44 pretty excited fans for Army. What they're going to change for this year is that they're going to sit behind the Army bench. For the last 8 or 9 years, they've been sitting on the opposite side of the field, the east side, and they have been sitting behind the visitors' bench. And I guess they felt that was unfair, so they're going to move them back to the home team side of the field underneath the press box.
Now isn't that what they normally should be? Because I feel like, I'm not sure if, that both sides, there should be a side for the home team, and then for I think that should be the way for. Isn't it the way usually for all the teams?
What happens most of the time is the visitors are allotted a minimum of a couple hundred tickets, and they're usually in the far reaches of the stadium. At West Point, the visitor seating is behind the south, is in the south end zone. Normally, if they bring a band with them, the band would be sitting in the south end zone. And normally there's, depending on the school, there's a pretty good supply of tickets made available for them. That was going to be a real problem if Oklahoma had come in this year, because they could have sold 100,000 tickets that game, and Oklahoma wanted 5,000 to 6,000 for their alumni to use. But we'll see. I think it's a question I want to get back to is what you brought up about the size of the traveling squad.
Yeah.
And there's a famous moment in the Rudy movie where Coach Ara Parsegan is explaining to Rudy that he can only dress so many players. Now, my understanding is that rule has been loosened. I will have to check the exact number on how many home team players are allowed to dress, and then how many visitors are allowed to dress. You could very well see a smaller traveling squad in college football this year, because normally a traveling squad could be 70 players and then, about 50 people on staff. John, what do you think about that? About should the numbers of players allowed in each game be made equal this year?
I don't think so, because part of what college football is all about, you hit the nail on the head, talking about Rudy Rudiger with Notre Dame. And the reality is, at home games, you have a different caliber out there in terms of you've got players who work, even if they don't have the same athletic ability as the other players or the top ranked players on the team. They need to have a chance of being able to hope that there's a chance that they can at least get into a game. And you only get that if they have home games. Otherwise, there are a lot of players who are just going to be scrimmage players and they'll never get their chance.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we'll watch is what the traveling squads look like, because they may be substantially reduced. You think of an NFL traveling team as, I think it's 53 now. They have been inching up. When I grew up, with the travel limit in the NFL was 40. But colleges are used to being able to have 3D players available, which has been a luxury that they may not be able to do this year. Jack McGuirk, you got a final thought for us today?
Well, one last note on Middle Tennessee. Interesting note. Of course, this is a road game for them up at Michie Stadium. Last season, they were actually 0-6 in road games, so they are desperately looking for a road win.
Yeah, they like Army had subpar years last year after having a very strong 2018 campaigns. They went to a bowl game in 2018. I believe they won. And Coach Munkin said that program with their coach has made the bowl game, has been bowl eligible 10 of their 15 seasons, which is quite a strong record. And so I think they're ready to utilize this quarterback, and they've got a very good safety. So we'll see. I'm expecting a very competitive game Saturday at Michie Stadium. Richard Miller, do you have a final thought for us? Do you have any another key college football story that you've seen?
Another key college football story that I see is also, let's see, I'm just looking here. Marco Wilson is ready to lead the Gators, brings versatility. Marco Wilson, he's a junior, a cornerback for Florida, a red shirt. One pretty good year so far. 2+ year starters for the Gators. Always a hard worker. He looks like he could be ready for a very important season.
Richard, what's the best team in Florida this year? Between you got University of Miami, Florida State, University of Florida. Who's the best? Who they say is the best team in Florida this year?
Florida's best team this year, that would be the Florida. I think they said the Florida Gators.
You're going to go with the Florida Gators. Okay, Richard, thank you. We appreciate your calling in and being the inspiration of getting this project started. John, you've got an article filed with the American Legion.
And Ken, we really didn't get a chance to go much into Navy, and I think it's important to deal with them because they are the reigning Commander-in-Chief's trophy holder. Remember, this is a team that went 11-2 last year, beat both the Army and Air Force, and won the AutoZone Liberty Bowl over Kansas State. Well, they're coming back with a new quarterback this year, a fellow named Dalen Morris, who has never, ever started a game for Navy. Now, he's a senior, but there's also a sophomore named Perry Olson who made 8 game appearances for them last year. He's somebody to watch. But their key runner is going to be the key element for them. They'll succeed as well as this kid goes. His name is Jamal Carruthers, and he led the team with 734 yards and 14 touchdowns on 111 carries last year. So he's going to be the key. Watch out for Navy. It'll be an interesting game when they play against BYU on Monday night.
And we'll be watching and we'll be following Army. I think one thing on the Army defense, they have a terrific linebacker named Eric Smith, had over 80 tackles last year. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday with Coach Munkin. The player to watch is Amadeo West, who is a linebacker and a captain of the team. He's had to return from 3 season-ending injuries. And as Coach Munkin said, we also heard from the new defensive coordinator, Nate Woody. Everybody listens to Amadeo West, and he's a great leader. and we have to see what his impact is on the defense. So we'll see what happens. And so I just want to kind of thank everybody for joining us tonight. Richard Miller calling in from Florida, Jack McGuirk from Pelham, Chuhran from Connecticut.
Very good, Ken.
Follow our reporting this weekend on Facebook, West Point Football Report, and on Twitter at Suns Legion Radio. And for our team, as we represent the 2 million veterans of the American Legion, have a good weekend, and we'll look forward to watching college football. Have a good night, everybody.